Hey everyone, welcome back to the Soccer Queens podcast. We have a fantastic guest today on everything college recruiting. We haven't talked a lot about this topic, but we are going to get into all of it. So, before we introduce the guest, I want to remind everyone that from here on out, the Soccer Queens podcast will only be on YouTube in video format. So, sorry, no more iTunes or Spotify. I want to focus on being in one place and not spreading myself thin and doing one thing really, really good. So that's the reasoning for it. So hopefully you love the changes, and we're going to have a lot of cool video content coming out in the future. So thank you for adapting and bearing with me here. Now, today's guest is just such an awesome friend of mine, colleague, and someone who I've been following closely for a while on Twitter. He does amazing work in the college recruiting space. And admittedly, I have always been skeptical of recruiting agencies, as I'm sure he has as well. But he is someone who I really trust in this space. So, Don Williams, welcome to the show.
Erica, God, I'm so excited. It's just like I feel the same way about you that you feel about me, and I think that's what kind of drew us to each other because you're telling the truth about fitness. You're not faking it. You're not telling people stuff just to make money. You're just being honest, and that's the whole goal of what we do too. So I thank you for having me on.
Of course. And for people who don't know the work that you do, why don't you just give a background on your company and how you got to this point?
Yeah, I kind of start at the beginning, short form. So I coached in college for 22 years. I've been involved now in and around the college game for over 30 years in one form or another. Um, and when I retired in 2018, the maybe one of the few companies in the world that I recruited from where I trusted whatever they said was Sports Recruiting USA. It was a friend of mine, Chris Cousins, that started it in very short form. It was pretty much English kids only, and they were only handling about 50 kids a year. This idea of quality over quantity, not just ripping people off and grabbing all the money that you can, and then maybe the kids get placed or they don't. They had 100% placement, and I had actually recruited 3 or 4 of his kids. So, and had great experiences with them. I noticed they were more informed, more ready for college. He was encouraging kids to go to junior college, not discounting it if that was the right thing for them, if it was the right fit for them, as we say. And so he and I had a conversation when I retired, like, what would this look like if we brought that concept to the United States? And my first thing was like, dude, it's not going to work. Nobody's going to come to a tryout in the United States to be able to pay you, $2,000 to be able to represent them as an agent. It's not going to happen. So I just started going out to events and looking at kids and talking to families and placing. So, we have an agency now. That was 3 of us back then in 2018. Now over 100 of us spread out throughout Canada, US, Mexico, Colombia, Africa, England. And the concept is the kids that are truly ready to go to college. And look, not every kid should be going playing college soccer. That's the first of all what I believe. I don't believe every kid should be going to college. I think some kids are will be happier in life if they're working with their hands, if they're working at plumbing or electricity and whatever they're doing, right? I don't think every kid needs to go to college, and certainly not every kid's ready to play college sports. So we're just looking for the kids that are ready. We don't like contact everybody all the time about every kid because not every kid's the right fit for every program or every coach or every school or every location. And so we're trying to sort through the myriad of criteria that we've noticed in our coaching careers tends to be important to certain families, and then match those kids with a select amount of schools that are the right fit for them. So that's the concept, and it's all about finding the right fit, Erica, the right fit for the right kid at the right moment in time, and that's the basis of the company.
You talk about the right fit a lot in your tweets, and I totally love that. And it's it's nice that you guys focus on finding the people that you can truly help and not just taking on anyone and everyone for money or preying on like sixth, seventh, and eighth graders. And you see that a lot. You see that a lot with
Yeah.
these recruiting companies. So, if parents are considering working with a recruiting agency, what are some red flags they should look out for when sifting through these people?
Uh, I've been struggling with that concept. Like, how do you tell the frauds from the real people? So I just actually tweeted about this one last night. Um, it was a multi-part tweet. I couldn't fit it all in, but I thought, well, this is pretty simple, isn't it? When somebody's saying that they can help you, why don't you find out, first of all, what they think of you as a player? What are their qualifications? And then what do they think of you as a player? What's their evaluation of you? What do they like about you? What do they think you're going to struggle with? What do they, and what I'm noticing is when I go to some of these websites of some of these other companies, uh, they're volleyball people and they're water polo people and they're baseball people. And here's how I describe it, Erica. Look, I can't tell you the difference between a shortstop and a second baseman. I'm sure there's a difference, and some of it's logical. Like, I don't think I want a left-handed second baseman because they'd have to kind of wheel around, and it's going to slow down their delivery to first base. So I can logic some of this out, but I don't think that I'm the right guy to be an expert on baseball because I never played baseball. I never coached baseball. I coached Little League, but that's not the same thing. Coaching your kids at 6, 7, 8, 9 years old is not the same thing. And I'm a soccer guy. That's all I do is soccer. So I think in the soccer world, I think it's important that you ask soccer people who have been around soccer for a long time, who have seen it at all levels. Because how do you know what Florida State wants or what Santa Clara wants if you've never sent a kid to Santa Clara or Florida State and if you've never been around those coaching staffs? How would you know? I wouldn't know if I hadn't done it. If I hadn't had kids at Stanford and Duke and Florida and then kind of tracked their careers over their 4 years, saw whether they were successful or coming off of the bench or not playing at all. I had a girl at Colorado Buffaloes. She played 90 minutes in 4 years of a spring match her junior year, but I already knew it going in. I mean, I already told her going in. Bill Hempen already told her going in, we'll take you as our fourth string goalkeeper, and you can sit here and be part of the team, and you're not going to ever get to play. And that's what happened. Uh, I've seen enough kids at all different levels, at all different places, all over the country. I've seen kids go from junior college to Penn State, from junior college to Florida State on the women's side, from junior college to Lipscomb and Barry. And I've seen kids make it into the tournament. So kind of see the development pathways. I've seen kids at 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 go to UCLA, go to place for Wolfsburg in Germany, go and then play in the MLS. So I remember what it looked like at the different stages. So I think whoever the recruiting people that you're talking to that are the experts, if they've seen that level, they should be able to evaluate you. So ask them to evaluate you. Ask them to give you, like, for free. I will tell people that, okay, you should be looking at the Southwest Athletic Conference if you want to play D1, or you should be looking at the MAC, or you should be looking at the Northeast Conference or the Atlantic 10, and ask them the differences. I mean, what's the difference between the Peach Belt and the MAC and the Southwest and the CCAA out in California? What's the difference between the junior colleges in California and the junior colleges in Iowa or Nebraska? What's the difference? Because there is a difference. And I think that if you can ask them those questions, they're not going to be able to answer those questions. They won't have evaluated you. They won't know the difference between all those conferences. They won't tell you where you're supposed to be going. And if they can't do that, I would say run. I would say keep your money and go find somebody else who's an expert. And I'm not saying go to me. I believe there are other people in this country doing sort of what I'm doing and in bits and pieces that are very good at what they're doing and are helping a lot of kids. I do believe that. I don't believe we're the only company in the world that's doing this the right way. That would be stupid and arrogant of me. But I do believe that there are more frauds and people ripping kids off in families than are helping them. I do believe that. And the other thing I've said, and you've heard me say this before, if somebody's coming after your sixth grader, seventh grader, eighth grader, run. run. If they're telling you you're behind, that you better get out in front of this, they're playing on FOMO, right? Fear of missing out. Oh my goodness, my kid's gonna miss. They're lying to you. They're 1,000% lying to you. And I don't care what anybody says. I'll argue with anybody in this country, and I'd love to have a debate with anybody in this country who says that kids need to be worrying about recruiting at sixth, seventh, eighth, and even ninth graders to some extent. Here's what I say about ninth graders. It depends how good you are. If you truly are a national team level player, but haven't been exposed to that system for whatever reason, you might want to start getting on the radars a little bit of coaches if you're truly that good. Even then, don't panic. Look, they can't even talk to you till your sophomore year. The class of 2024 at this moment is just being identified, the sophomores, just being identified. They're out there exploring and they're putting names on what we call war boards, which is just a ranking board by position of what they're going to need for that particular year. And look, it doesn't mean that, oh, got 12 players on my war board. Those are the 12 players I'm recruiting. If I come into them with a English national team player or a Canadian national team player her junior year, 1,000% she'll go to number one on the war board, and there'll still be scholarship money available. Don't panic, parents. Don't panic. You have time. Right now in your senior year, the class of 2022 should be panicking. We're going
Yeah.
into March. We don't have much time. But we had a girl come in this week, Erica, who was committed to a school. The coach gave her spot away to a transfer portal kid. So a former division had been playing Division One at a different school, didn't work out. Grabbed that kid. Our kid's out on their ear. Came to us, and in 8 hours we had her 5 or 6 D1s of equivalent or better level that are still looking. So still don't have to panic yet, but what are you waiting for? At this point, it's like, what are you waiting for? You better get moving. But those are seniors, right? That's what I'm talking about. Yeah. I hope that makes sense.
It does, and as you were just talking there, I was like, "Wow, you're saving a lot of parents from some frauds." And I do wanna touch on the younger ones. So if we're talking middle school, I totally get don't go to a recruiting agency, you can't even talk to these coaches yet, but I see a lot of, like, middle schoolers and even elementary schoolers, like, starting their Instagram already, like, starting the highlight videos. So what are your thoughts on that? I know
I
you're,
can't
like,
I
biting your
can't
tongue.
I can't tell you the percentage, but a very large percentage are not the kids starting their Instagrams. It's their parents doing it. Their
Right.
parents think that this is necessary. I have been told this is a recent phenomenon, by the way. This is a COVID phenomenon. This only started during COVID in 2020. I never saw this before. Uh, there were one or two popping up before, but not like it is now. Kids are being told you must have an Instagram account, you must have a Twitter account, you must tag college coaches, you must. Now look, I get tagged on a lot of stuff, so do you. Doesn't it a lot of this become spam? There's no way you can pay attention to all of it, right?
Mm.
Now imagine you and I are a college coach. So we were out at an MLS Next event a few months ago, and one of our staff members was talking to another college coach. He goes, "I got 1,000 emails this week leading up to this event saying, 'Come scout me.'" No way. Come on. It's all delete. There's no way I can answer them. There's no way I can look at them. There's just no way. It's not, I can't get through them. I did the math one time. Like, I know even at the quote unquote lowest levels that I coached at. So when I had we had the number 2 men's junior college team in the country and number 17 women's team in the country running at the same time at one point in the same program, and I was coaching both. Uh, I don't know, we're getting 25, 30, 40 emails a week, right? It was a lot to go through to actually be able to dig into each kid. It was a lot to go through. And then certain times as we get closer to here, it would become 50, 60, 70 as we would get into the senior year kids panicking, trying to find a home. It's too much. Cannot imagine what Anson Dorrance goes through, or Mark Krikorian goes through, or what Paul over at Stanford goes to. I can't imagine the sheer volume has to be unbelievable. Now add into that all the tagging. And look, it's just spam at that point, isn't it? I could be wrong. And I know that some very good friends of mine that are coaching at some very small Division III and NAIA and junior college teams in the country, especially on the women's side, but on the men's side too, they do struggle filling rosters because it's not a well-known name in a well-known area. And yes, they use Instagram. And yes, they are searching for you. But if it's the right fit for the kid, great. But if it's not, then it's not. Here's what I notice on the tagging, Erica. It's the big names. It's the Penn States and the Notre Dames and the Virginias and the those are the ones being tagged. Nobody's tagging these small little NAIA D3 schools. In fact, when those small little, I've got a very good friend of mine who runs a program that he just took over and he's really trying to rebuild it up to what probably should be. He asks for players, Erica. Nobody even responds. Zero responses or one response. The kids are blowing straight past all of the programs that maybe they're best suited for. Maybe it's the right fit for them, and going straight to the Virginias and the Stanfords and the Santa Claras of the world. That's what I'm noticing, and I think it's spam.
Mm.
That's what I think.
It's just more noise into the abyss. And you actually changed my mind on that because I thought, why not like just tell like my middle schoolers to start posting videos? But it does make sense with all of the tagging and how many emails college coaches get, and it's just so overwhelming that they can't get to it all. And then they're not going to remember that like 12-year-old who tagged them in a post 5 years ago. So you definitely changed my mind on that one. That's really good advice. Now, as far as the right fit. So you always talk about how there's different people that work with you. Some people just want to go to college for soccer. They want to play maybe in the top 25 Division I programs. And then on the other hand, you have people who want to do D2, D3, maybe focus on academics, JUCO as well. So how do you go about getting the players and the parents to truly find that right fit, and like where do they start? So you have a high school sophomore, and how do they even begin to find that right fit?
Yeah, it starts with the old saying, know thyself. Know thyself. You have to know who you are as a person to figure out what the right fit is. So here's how I describe it. It's every kid falls on a spectrum. The spectrum goes from one end. Me and my son were two of these, and I'd say 50, 70% of my clients, maybe 80% are this kid. Look, I want to play college soccer. I want to play as long as I can. I am so in love with this game. I am so impassioned by this game. I want to play into my 60s if I can. I want to play. I don't ever want to stop playing this game. Uh, Look, I'm not an idiot. I know I need to get an education. I know I'm probably not going to be a pro. If I do, I do. It's great. It's great. I would like to, but because I want to play longer. It's not that I want to make millions of dollars. I want to play longer. I want to keep going. And Bruce, by the way, side note, Bruce Murray on Inside College Soccer, we have our own podcast. He talks specifically about this. Bruce Murray went to Clemson. He was the National Player of the Year, won the Herman Mack. He played professionally over in England. And he said it was just about extending my career. Everything. All right, I'm going into high school. Can I extend my career? I'm going into college. Can I extend my career? I'm going to the pros. Can I extend my career? And so I think that's where a lot of kids are, especially soccer heads. That's where they are. And so I believe that that's one end of the spectrum. These kids are going to get a degree and they're going to be able to play. Now, the other end of the spectrum is, look, I want to go to school. I want to go to Vassar. I want to go to Yale. I want to go to Harvard. I want to go to Amherst. I want to Swarthmore, Williams, Bay. The East Coast is very full of a lot of kids that their dream is to go to these schools. And while they're there, let's play college soccer. Let's play college soccer. Look, it's a great stress reliever. One of my best stories on this is I was sitting down with watching Caltech play. So they were playing against Cal State East Bay men's team, and it was co-ed. at the time. This is a number of years ago. So Caltech, if people don't know, is the MIT of the West Coast. It's the military contract people. It's the people that are really the smartest people in the world are going to Caltech and MIT as well as other schools, Johns Hopkins type of thing. But Caltech on the West Coast, and I said, what's going on here? What's the co-ed stuff? How does this work? This is college. And they were terrible. They weren't very good. He goes, look, we did a study a few years ago, kids in the world coming here, and they were all the smartest kids in their town and their city and their state and their region. They come here and they're not the smartest anymore. And they were stressing. And we had kids hurting themselves. We had kids that weren't dealing with the stress. What we found, we did some studies, is that kids that did sports had a stress reliever. They had an outlet. And we found it helped. So every kid at Caltech at that time, I'm told, was required to play at least 2 of their 4 years any sport they want. So kids were going, look, I've been studying. I haven't been playing sports, but I did play soccer when I was 7. I guess that's close enough. Let me go play soccer. And they were going onto this team, and they didn't have enough for a men's and women's team at the time, and they're playing co-ed. So you've got these kids who are using soccer as an outlet on one end of the spectrum. You've got these kids that are chasing the soccer dream, but while they're at it, they're going to get an education on the other end of the spectrum. I think every kid falls somewhere on that spectrum. So my job is to find out where on the spectrum that kid falls. And if it's the Amherst, Swarthmore, the NESCAC schools, those really high-end academic, or on the West Coast, we have Pomona Pitzer and Occidental and Claremont Mudscripts, and in the middle of the country, we've got the UWashes of the world and the Emorys down south. If that's what the kid wants, that's great. So that's the first piece of the puzzle. Figure out who the kid is and what they want. And then if it's possible, by the way, because now we have these Ivy League parents. We want our kids to go to the Ivy League. My kid wants to go to the Ivy League, but they have a 3.75 GPA and a 1310 SAT, and they want soccer to get them in because they're not going to be able to get in. So they think that sports are going to be their key into getting into these schools. Look, it's not true. Johns Hopkins is a 1550 SAT, zero flexibility. You're at 1549, you're not getting in. Done. Decided. That comes straight from the Hopkins coach. Now that's not the norm. Okay, so I'm talking to Amherst and people. If your audience doesn't know who I'm talking about, just Google it, look it up. Amherst coach said, and I can't remember the exact numbers, so I'm going to just summarize them. He says, look, minimum is 1450 to get in here. I've got 2 exceptions a year at anything, like 1400. He goes, but don't ask me to get in at 1250. That's not happening. So there's some flexibility. So there's some truth, as usual in life. There's a little bit of truth into the big giant rumor that parents are throwing out, or the big giant conceptions that parents have and that kids have, because there's a little grain of truth in it. But I don't know. It's kind of like trying to hit the lottery, and that's how I'm planning my retirement. Those exceptions happen for such a few numbers of kids that why are we talking about the 1/4 of 1/2 of 1% of the kids when what we should be talking about is the 99.99% of the kids, because this is where most of them are going to go. So that's the second piece. Then we've got things like. Some kids, I had a girl from Ohio last year said, my dream school is LIU. And I thought, LIU, you're going to go from Ohio to New York to Long Island. How's that going to go for you? It's going to be a big culture shock. And she says, no, I visited, I've been, it's great. Boom, I made a phone call. Here she is on LIU on the team. Boom, hated every minute of it. Hated every minute. Now she's back at a D3 school we helped her connect with in Ohio. Knowing who you are as a person and what you jive with is really important. So big city, small town, big school, small school in a big city. Those exist. Big schools in small towns. Notre Dame, South Bend, Indiana. Not like South Bend, Indiana is the same as Chicago, but Notre Dame is there, huge school. Some kids don't like that. Well, what do I do when I'm not around school? Where am I going to go? What am I going to do? What do I do in the spring when there's more downtime? There's nothing to do here. Some kids, right? Then my son went to St. Francis in Loretto, Pennsylvania. The town is 750. The school's 1,500. Uh, 20 minutes from a town of 100,000, Altoona. 2 hours from State College. There's not a lot to do there except sports. So they went and watched volleyball, and they went and watched basketball, and they went and watched football, and those guys came and watched them. Kind of a little sports school. Some kids that jives with. Other kids, that's not what they want. It's not what jives with them. Soccer's just an outlet for them. They're not, it's not like they watch sports on television. My son watched every sporting event of every kind all the time. He just loves sports. And now he's coaching in college. No surprise. Every kid's different. What do we want? And then you got what they want to study, Erica. So a kid that wants to study aerospace engineering, immediately I go Embry-Riddle. That's my first thought that comes to me. And then a kid who wants to study business, like, everybody's going to argue with me. I'm going to probably get hate mail on this, but who cares where your business degree is from, really? The business world in general doesn't care. Look, unless we're doing international finance or something like that, and we're involved with Goldman Sachs, then of course a Harvard business degree maybe makes sense. But for most of us that are working in, everyday America, just trying to get a job at a manufacturing plant doing sales or whatever we're doing, they don't care where your degree is from. They're going to give you an opportunity based on the fact that you could buckle down and finish something and do well at it. And now we're going to give you a chance to prove yourself. So really, as a businessman with an MBA, I'll hire people that got college degrees. I'm not really that stuck on where they're from. And I don't think I'm that unusual. So what's their degree? What do they want to study? Then you've got the financial piece. Look, Baylor University, and one of my favorite coaches in the world is coaching there now, Michelle Leonard. She's not going to argue with the fact that it's $82,000. I threw a player at her this week who she likes very much, and we talked about the GPA, and I just took a shot in the dark because I kind of know their structure. And I said, so what's it going to be for this kid? About 50 grand? And she goes, yeah, that's about right. So I go back to the parents. I go, so you had Baylor on your list. It's 50 grand ish, within 5, 6, 7, 8, 9,000. And they go, yeah, that's in my budget. And I go, okay, we got to match. We got to match. Everything about Baylor seemed to match except the financial piece. Villanova is very expensive. Boston College is very expensive. Then other schools like Amherst, they're looking for low income, ethnic, low socioeconomic kids. They want to help build that. So it's not going to cost that kid that much, even though that's the sticker price. Again, the financial piece has to weigh in. Are you getting federal grant money? Are you getting Pell Grant money? Or is your EFC zero? EFC is expected family contribution. When you fill out your FAFSA, it gives you a number. If it's 5,000, then they expect you to pay 5,000, and the government's going to chip in the difference up to a certain amount. But a zero EFC kid says, we are dirt poor. We're not going to get any, we don't have money to pay for school. The government's expecting us to pay zero. That kid's worth somewhere between $15,000 and $20,000, to a college coach. So in other words, the government's going to pay that 15 to 20,000, and if the kid's got a 3.8 or better GPA or 3.75 or better, that kid's going to have no problem attracting that college coach. So how do the finances fit into it? And then weather. People ignore weather, but some kids don't do well in Houston humidity. Some kids don't do well in Florida humidity. Some kids don't do well in Arizona. Some kids don't do well in up in the Northeast where it's frigid, or up in the Great Lakes region. And understand that, August, September, October's not bad, but November it starts to get cold. By the time you finish in December, it's freezing. By the time you come back to school and have to start training in the spring, it's really cold. And some kids don't want to train indoors for 3 months of the year. Then maybe Binghamton, New York's not the place for you. Yes, there's a D1 school for you there. And yes, it's fine at Binghamton, great school, or Syracuse, but may not be for you. And then some kids are special needs kids. We've got ADHD kids that we deal with. And look, they're going to have to make sure that they go to the right school with the right environment to support them. Some of those kids would get lost in these giant state schools of 30, 40, 50, 60, 80,000 kids, and they wouldn't do well. Maybe they need a small environment. So those are just some of the factors. I honestly could start thinking of factors all day long, and we could talk forever just on what the right fit means. But I hope it gives your listeners a little bit of insight.
So there are so many factors that go in. So thank you for sharing those. And my next question is, like, given all these factors, have there been a lot of scenarios where some people just had to kind of compromise, and maybe like they wanted to go to a school really bad, the coach loved them, they got in, but they don't really like the weather, or they might not have their major, but they're going to compromise on it anyway? And how do they navigate that on what to compromise on?
Yeah, I think what a lot of kids don't understand because they haven't experienced enough of life yet is that when we make our great plans and schemes and dreams, very rarely in your life does it all go perfectly with no glitches, no hitches, no hiccups. We built a garage on our house a few years back. And I thought, oh, this will be easy. It'll be up in 3 months. And the contractor said it'll be done. The windows didn't come in on time, or they don't have that style of this anymore, and you got to change this. And it's like, okay, so 6 months later, we're still working on this, and things don't always go perfect. I think that I think this college search is a very important. I don't know, Erica, what maybe top three things you'll ever do in your life: get married, have kids, or do big decisions, or going to college, because college affects the next 40, 50, 60 years of your life. The friends you make in high school, I don't know, one guy I talk to still. The friends in college, way more, because we all grew up together. We all became adults together. We all realized what was important together. And we all really bonded. And we spent 4 years like living with each other, and especially on the soccer team. My goodness. During the season, it's almost annoying. December can't come soon enough for a lot of soccer players and coaches, because we spend so much time with these people, so many hours a day with them. But the bonding experience is incredible. So I think what we're setting as a table for the rest of our life is a very, very important decision. And I don't think it's to be entered into based on what names look best on a sweatshirt,
Mhm.
what names I can brag about on Instagram. I think kids are chasing shiny, glittery things. Oh, it's very exciting to say, I drive a Lamborghini. Yeah, but if your Lamborghini doesn't have an engine in it and the floorboard's rusted, you're just pushing it around like everybody else. How is this a big thing? And there are Division 1 schools in this country that are rusted out Lamborghinis that only have the label. Then there are Division 1 schools in this country that are shiny and big and beautiful and have everything that you want. And then there are Division 2 schools and NAI schools and Division 3 schools and junior colleges that are beautiful, big, and shiny and have everything you want. And there's some that have rusted out floorboards and no engines in them. And they just can't seem to get any momentum to build a program. These are things that I think need to be considered. And I
What
don't
a
know
what
that many parents really think about it and kids really think about it from that aspect.
what about the players who want to go for top 25 Division 1, and they're under the impression they're going to get a lot of financial aid, or the parents want the full ride? What do you say to them? What are the chances of that now? Like, how
Let's
many of
just
these scholarships are given out?
let's discuss the term full ride. So let's clarify what that is for parents and players. It means tuition, books, fees, room and board. Board is food for any kids listening, food. That, in other words, in order to pick up at 18 years old or 17 or 18 and move to another part of the country to go to school, it's not going to cost you a single nickel to live there. Okay. First thing I explain to parents is I don't believe, as an adult, as a parent whose child played Division 1 soccer, uh, reading Anson Dorrance's book. I don't think he believes this either, and I'm just using him as an example because he wrote it down in his book, that there needs to be skin in the game for every family, at least a little bit, that nothing should be free for anybody. I don't think it's reasonable for a parent to boot their kid out of the house before they are able to get a job and pay for their own food and rent, and then expect another adult or another organization to pay for the room and board for them. I don't think it's reasonable. Uh, My personal opinion. So that alone, Erica, is 8 to 10,000 maybe in certain parts of Iowa, and it's 24, 25,000 in New York City. and it's the same down in Los Angeles or Seattle. It's no different. It's all based on real estate prices. Yes, I can buy a home in outside of Atlanta, Georgia for 300,000. It would cost me 1.2 million in the Bay Area. Rental prices, dorm prices, food prices all seem to follow about that same thing. So we're talking about, as a parent, we should be prepared to spend somewhere, depending on what we want, of the $12,000 to $15,000 range is reasonable. And I believe, from my experience, I'm seeing it on a daily basis, that a kid with a 3.8 or better GPA and an SAT score that hits, don't have to be perfect, but if you can hit the 13s, which isn't ridiculous. Most kids hit 1150 in their sleep. And everybody finds it really hard to hit the 14s and above. But the 1250s to the 13s, if they can hit that with those GPAs, that at most schools, they're going to find it's close to that 12, 15, 20 range a year. Okay. And now, as a college coach, how much money am I willing to invest in an 18-year-old that I am betting is going to be better than my 22-year-old that I've had for 4 years? That's an All-American. I think that All-American kid has earned it and should be on a full ride. I believe in a meritocracy. I know people talk about meritocracies are dangerous, but I think the true idea of a meritocracy is you're going to get what you've earned. If you've worked harder, if you put in more hours, if you scored goals, if you've stopped goals, if you've helped us win games, then you're going to be rewarded. And I think most college coaches in this country believe that freshmen are unproven and we will reward you later on down the line if you do well. So now when you average it out over 4 years, some of these kids are only paying 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 a year. But don't expect as a freshman for that to happen. And especially in today's 2019, I think the transfer portal was the first year of the transfer portal. So before that, Erica, you had to get the coach's signature, you had to get the AD's signature, and they all could say, no, you're not leaving. But now there's 1,000, 1,200 kids at any specific moment that are in the transfer portal at the end of a whole season of the transfer portal that enter and go through it. So coaches are shopping that portal, right? We've got older, more mature players that have already been away from home. Is the upside of it, and have already played. That's the upside of it. And I guess the downside of it is, why are they transferring? Not always the coach's fault. No matter what the kid says, it's not always the coach's fault. Sometimes it's not the right environment. Sometimes it's the player's fault. Sometimes. So I think that parents have to understand it's extremely competitive. The international market is really coming to play, Erica. On the guys' side, the number's about 30% of all of the kids in the NCAA are from another country. On the girls' side, the number's about 12%. But it's growing, and it'll probably won't get to the size of the guys' side, I don't think. Not here in the United States, not as long as the U.S. women continue to win World Cups. We're still the number one country in the world for female development. Got far more numbers than they have in England or Australia or even Germany or Sweden. We've got far more numbers. So coaches are still going to shop here on the women's side. But I think people don't understand how competitive the marketplace is with about roughly 500,000 kids saying they want to play in college, roughly saying it. Don't know whether they want it or not, but just walk out to any youth team in the country and go, who wants to play in college? And they'll all raise their hands. So my informal polls at youth camps and stuff says there's a lot of kids who say they want to play in college. It's a competitive marketplace. Now, if your kid's special, truly special. So I do have a girl right now that did get a full to UNLV, a full plus a little bit of cash. But I think that at the level that she is, she's very special as a player. We were talking to Washington and LSU and other schools that were very high up in the food chain of the Power Fives. But financially, they didn't have to spend the money to get her kind of a player. But, UNLV felt that this was the right thing for their program at this time to do, to spend a lot of money on her. And So, Jenny made the right decision for her and her program. And I think that's what's going to happen. And a lot of the kids might not think of UNLV. They'll think straight to the Power Fives. They'll think straight to the Notre Dames and the Stanford and the Virginias and the UCLA. So I think what happens is if money is really important to you, I can almost guarantee any decent player in the country with any decent grades that we've been talking about, 3.5 or better, that they can find full rides. 1,000% guarantee you. But it's going to be to a junior college, or it's going to be to an NAIA, or it's going to be to a small D2 in this area who look at this player and go, better than anything I've got on my roster. I'll take that kid and I'll give her a full. And that's the piece that I think a lot of parents and players are missing, Erica. I think too many kids are chasing the wrong levels. They're chasing the wrong schools for the wrong reasons, the wrong levels, and then being unreasonable with their demands to get a full ride to those schools. And it's not going to happen. Look, Florida State Mark Krikorian doesn't need my help finding a player. Doesn't need my help at all. Does he have two? Has he had two of ours? Yeah. He's got one of them right there. A girl plays on the England national team. Was playing for Man City's full women's team at 17. She's very, very good. He didn't need our help finding a player like Emma, but Emma was the right fit for his program, so we just did the introduction. Do you see what I mean? And that's the difference. It's not like, coach, you do so many kids, they write the email, I think I can help your team. Good. How many games have you watched? 0. How many games have you watched at this level? 0. How many evaluations have you had of your ability? 0. And it's like, okay, how do you know this? How do you know this? And coaches just look at that as like spam, like another kid said the same thing over and over, right?
So that was just a wealth of information, and totally agree with you about people just chasing the wrong level. And I think you did an excellent job just summarizing how people can narrow it down and be more reasonable. And I definitely want to do a part 2 on like the process with getting video footage. Do you need to be ECNL and all that, those questions? So we'll definitely do another deep dive on that piece of it. But in the meantime, I want everyone to get connected with you, start following your Twitter. It's amazing advice, great insight. So where can everyone find you?
All right. So Twitter, it's Don_K_Williams. Same on Instagram. I'm pretty easy to find on Facebook. We have 2 Facebook groups. I can point everybody to. We have a parents and players Facebook group. Again, pretty easy to find if you just search it out. Any parent anywhere in the world can ask us for free advice. And if I don't have time to answer it, I'll point them to one of my staff members. We have about 300 years of college coaching experience at all levels within our staff combined. So plenty of experience to be able to answer questions. And then my email is don@srusasoccer.com. And our company is srusasoccer.com. Very simple. And just so everybody knows, we're an invitation-only agency, okay? We just don't have the manpower or the capacity to handle. We had 67 girls last year. All 67 were sorted and placed. We had 112 guys. All 112 got sorted and placed. Very similar numbers this year. So, we just can't take on every player. And there is a set of minimum qualifications, Erica, that we're going to ask that every family has to meet. And if they can't meet that, then it doesn't mean they can't play in college, but we will at least tell them where they can play, where they should be looking. They can take our advice or they can leave it.
Awesome. So guys, be sure to check the description below for all of Don's links as well as his email, and definitely take him up on it. Get an evaluation, see where you're at right now, and then if you are a fit for them, then you guys will work together and it'll be absolutely super. So Don, thank you again. This was an incredible discussion. I learned some things. You changed my mind on a lot of things, which I always love. So thank you again.
Well, thank you. And I didn't forget to mention Inside College Soccer, Erica, which you have been a guest on. And we just had our Mythbusters episode that just reached our #1 most downloaded podcast. It's 4 college coaches with about 180 years of experience talking at all different levels, talking about the truths and the rumors that we hear and what the truth is behind those. We called it our Mythbusters episode. Please check it out. Inside College Soccer.
I love that. So, guys, definitely check out the Mythbusters episode. I'm going to check it out myself. That sounds so good. So, yeah, Don, thanks again. And we will definitely be back for a part 2.
Looking forward to it, Erica. Thanks so much.